All right. Welcome all. Yeah, so good to see some familiar faces and new ones. Yeah, so glad to have you here. It's a very overcast, rainy, misty day here in Colorado, which is such a gift because it's usually hot and dry and crispy. So feels good to be gathering with you all on this cozy day, even here on Zoom land. So, do you all have a candle with you, or some of you? Even if you don't, it's no big deal. Okay, great. We're gonna light it in just a moment. Um, yeah, so I would love for before we kind of get things rolling and a few more trickle in, is put in the chat, like what brought you here? What drew you here? Because yeah, I'm just curious what the thread of longing, curiosity is that brought you here. So go ahead and put that in the chat. Studying rites of passage, granddaughters. Yeah. Thank you so much, grandmas, for being here. Facilitating sacred ceremony, my own healing journey, totally raising daughters, sharing women's wisdom with youth, feeling it in my bones. Yep. Raising a culture of girls supporting each other. Totally. Yeah. I realized a long time ago that our culture doesn't have rites of passage anymore. I'm writing a book about future society that brought them back. Totally. Yeah, I hear it's in our bones. Yeah, as women, I totally am with you. And I think that, um, you know, part of what I believe is why we're here is that the body remembers what the culture forgot. And we're gathered today to really acknowledge what once was and to begin to like really reclaim what is our birthright. Our birthright for initiation, for village style mentorship. It's been so much longer that we're not living, that we lived in village than we aren't living in village. Like all those comments of it's in our bones. Yes, it definitely is. We're wired for these ways and for shepherding the youth. And honestly, to really start weaving in ways that help build culture, um, a more beautiful culture than the dominant one that we find ourselves in, that is so rooted in patriarchy and a masculine pace. And so it's like, yeah, how do we build the culture that we really want to belong to and pass on to our children and our grandchildren? So, yeah, thank you all for putting these in. Totally great. We're all on the same page. I'm just going to switch my view, a little technology moment real fast. So, a quick overview of our time today is that we have about 90 minutes. And in just a moment, we'll light a candle and really create a coherent field because that is part of culture building to me. Is like, how do we bring our energies together and set intention and create more ritual in our lives? And then I'll go into about an hour-long teaching on rites of passage that really explores an outline for moontime ceremonies and culture building, like how to normalize what is not normal to our girls. And then, um, and then I'll share about my rites of passage and girls group facilitator training, whose doors are opening today. And we'll have a little time for Q&A and close in a good way. And I'll just share a little bit about myself I don't know most of you. I'm Johanna, and I am a soul-centric Waldorf trained educator and ceremonialist, teen guide, and founder of Wakeful Nature. And it's been for over 20 years that I've been working with children and community in very alternative ways and guiding girls through this threshold of childhood into maidenhood. And the way I do this is through remembering and weaving our ancestral ways of ritual, storytelling, nature connection, craft, and village style mentorship. Um, Summer, I'm just going to suggest you mute anyone that comes in on. Great. Yeah, so that we can return to holding our youth with beauty, with soul and depth through what is arguably the most challenging and confusing years of their life. And my work is really rooted in a longing to reweave culture, to honor rites of passage that mark the becoming. And we'll start getting into all of that. But I want a better future for our children. I have a child. Many of you probably have children. And even if you don't, there's still like what this deep missing, all these missing pieces for us um, through these thresholds. And I don't want anyone to cross them alone, like probably most of us did. So, with all that said, let's just light our candle and I'll just say a little, not a little, let's say a big fat prayer. Or yeah, I want to light this candle in honor of the youth. And I like to call in the elements of earth, water, fire, and air. Call in our long, long line of grandmothers that no matter whether you knew them well or not, you do come from a long, long stream of women who were strong, who knew the ways of initiation, and for whatever reasons may have lost these ways. But we are going to ask that these old ones, these ones who are in the spirit world looking over us, be with us and perhaps even whisper in our ears. And yeah, give gratitude for their caring presence and for, yeah, for the ways that have been forgotten. May we start to rekindle with the lighting of this candle. And may we listen with open minds and soft hearts. And may our time together be in service of the youth, the future women of the world. All right, here we go. All right, so let's get into it a little. So, rites of passage is actually only a term that was created a little bit over 100 years ago. Yet it's a process that is as old as humanity. And the term was first used, it was coined in 1908 by a Belgian anthropologist named Arnold van Gennep. And he used the term to refer to the rituals that mark an individual's change in their social status and their position within their community. And so today we use the term very loosely. I was at a gas station last year, and they have the screens at the gas station now with like advertisements. And I was so blown away because it was like a man who I assumed was a football player. It was like really, really bulky, shaved head, like military vibe, and just really like uber uh, dominant culture, masculine, I would say. And he said it was a rite of passage. And I was like, wait, what did he just say? And so I feel like people are using this term very, very loosely and using it in a way that really speaks to a big experience, a transformational experience. But when I'm referring to rite of passage, I'm really like referring it to as the intentional container that marks a transition from one way of being to another. And in a minute, I'm going to show, or actually, I'll just show you right now the map of initiation that my friend Rahel Ruach came up with. So, can you all see that? I actually can't see you, so when I share these things, so just unmute yourself if anything happens here. So, This is this life wheel map of initiation. And where we start is over here in the east. And this is the birth. We'll start with birth. So we're coming into the world, and this is the threshold of arrival. Everyone gets this rite of passage, right? If you're here in a human body, you went through this rite of passage. It's when the veil from the spirit world is thin. We don't know exactly when the spirit actually comes in, if it's the first breath, if it's gestation, but it's like this birthing moment where the soul actually comes. And then we have childhood. And so as we move from birth through childhood, we have all sorts of experiences, right? But down here at this marking, this would mark the south. This over here would mark the west, and then we have the north. And these are the threshold points where the color changes on this map. And so these right here between childhood and adolescence are the blood rights. And this is for all genders. And for the masculine, this might, like blood rights, they're not starting bleeding, right? But they are actually the masculine in a traditional culture, they would have been the hunters. And so their initiation would have also been marked by blood, by death. And for us, it's menstruation. And so it's this awakening of the life force of our first real identity. When you're in childhood, you're still in like unity consciousness. You're like your center of gravity is your family. And this blood right, this biological rite of passage that we're going to spend a lot more time on today, is that shift. And it shifts us into more of our center of gravity being pure life, being sexuality, being something like cultivating an authentic identity beyond our family system. And I'm just giving you this overview of the map because I think it's really important to see the big picture before we just start to dissect one section of it. And then the initiation in the West is the threshold from adolescence to adulthood. And this is really where the descent of soul, where a death needs to occur. And the false maybe identities that you've cultivated through adolescence, like anybody do that, you know. Um, Ideally, we shed that and a new ego, a new sense of self emerges. And then we go through the phase of adulthood. And then the initiation up in the north would be the elder rites. And this is one that is, I mean, all of these are missing, right, in our culture. But sadly, so many elders that I know and long for them to really claim their eldership are like age phobic. We live in an age phobic culture. Like there isn't like a longing to be aging and old the way things are right now. So ideally, a human would actually have an initiation into elderhood. And then we move through the wheel to the final threshold, which is the fifth initiation, which are the death rites. And so I want to show you what this actually looks like if we're going to look at it through the experience of just the feminine. So birth and death are still, or birth is the same. And then we go through girlhood. And then our blood rights are, right, menstruation. And we're going from girl, maiden, mother, crone, these archetypes that everyone has heard of. And the big one that most rites of passage organizations, because it is becoming more popular, which is amazing, but they mostly all focus here on what my friend from the Tree of Life initiation calls the creation rites. And you don't have to become a mother, right? You don't have to birth a child to go through an initiation and descent of soul into creativity, into mothering, birthing something other than a child. This can be many different things. And then the threshold at the top would be, right, the wisdom rights, claiming our wisdom as the crone. Okay. So I'm just gonna check in. Okay, great. So then really the one that we're going to focus on today is the one after birth, the one that I call the forgotten rite, because this transition between childhood and adolescence or girlhood into maidenhood, like I said, is very overlooked. Most of us are focusing on adolescence into adulthood. And so, how do we take what once was, what now is really a collective longing to reclaim our rights without a map, without a manual? And so that's what we're here to really explore today. And my hope is that you will walk away with some imaginations, ideas, and questions for you to take forward into your life to work with the children, the youth that are in your world. So, our starting place is really reclaiming the word monarchy. Monarchy, the definition is the first menstrual blood, your first period, your first moon time, whatever language you like to use. And never, as a girl or a young woman, did I personally hear this word. And that speaks directly to the poverty of our culture, right? The shame around menstruation, that we've actually lost the word for this biological thing that happens. And even the pronunciation, like I've heard so many different pronunciations, and based on my research, it is monarchy, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, again, we don't even know how to pronounce the word that explains the thing that we all go through that is a sacred threshold. So, this is a quote by Jane Hardwick Collins, which I really suggest following her work. She's working through all those different life cycles of the feminine. So, just jot her name down if you don't know her. And she says, at Monarchy, the experience a girl has, how she is treated, the messages she gets, both subliminal and specific, inform her of her culture's value of woman and how she is expected to behave. So, what messages did you receive with your first blood? And you know, I would love to for you to put them in the chat. Like what were the messages that you got? Let's just take a moment and tune into what the collective, yeah, messages. You poor thing. Congratulations, you're a woman now. That's what my mother said. And I was like, what? I'm a woman? Like that made no sense to me. No message, shame and embarrassment. Shame. Nothing. Yeah, nothing at all. No memory. I just didn't want my mom's help. Yeah, I know. And, because we don't have an intact culture, I believe that, like, the place to start building culture. Oh, I put the pad on the wrong side. Oh, yeah. Meant to keep private and secret. Totally. We start at the place of what's missing, what I call the poverty of our times or our culture, and really allow the longing of like, no, I'm doubting that anyone here wants any of these messages to be passed on. And yet, if we let the dominant culture have its way, which it's really an upriver battle, it is still passing on these messages. Yeah, Aaron, you didn't even tell your mom when you got home. Yeah, there's so much shame because we're not talking about it. Yeah, congratulations. Now you have the capacity to give life if you want to. Yeah, I found that really like confusing and overwhelming. It was horrible and painful. Yeah. So, yeah, I it's pretty heartbreaking. So, let's just keep looking. You're welcome to keep putting the messages that you got in the chat, but what is it that you wish you had been on the receiving end of when your cycle started? And so sit with what wisdom have you cultivated over the years that you want to pass on to the youth? What do you wish you had had, and what do you wish the children today were learning? And so go ahead and put those in the chat because just to balance out, it's like we're doing the spectrum here. We don't want to leave it like just in the challenge. Celebration of sharing wisdom, encouragement, and support. Yeah, support. We're going to talk about that because it's actually not just about like one-time support. Creation. I wish I'd been celebrated. Yeah. Understanding the process, how to work with the moon cycles, growth and magic, knowledge. Yeah. And what's so cool is that, like, everyone with a womb, I mean, most, I think the percentage is extremely small, but if you have a womb, you bleed, and it's what connects us to women everywhere. And if that's not magical, I don't know what is. It's a space to have whatever feelings they are having. Yeah, Faye says that it's a gift. Yeah. Sorry, it's hard to read them as they come in really fast. Yeah. So these are all, yeah, intuitive messages slowing down. Oh my gosh. Cyclical living. Yes. I did a whole like free course just as I want people to like really understand the different archetypes and seasons of the cycle. Totally. Yes, our bodies are amazing. Thank you all for putting those in. Feel free to keep them coming. So, we're going to start just by looking at intact cultural traditions because this is an image of an Apache 14-year-old girl being anointed in cattail pollen by her community at her menstrual ceremony. I don't know what the Apache actually call their menstrual ceremony, but intact cultures have been marking a girl's passage into womanhood, typically with monarchy, with rituals and ceremonies specific to passing on the wisdom and values of the culture and women's mysteries. These cyclical patterns that we have. Oh, thank you so much, Jumping Moon. It's called the sunrise ceremony. Thank you. Did you have that, Jumping Moon? Or Angelique? Curious. Um, And the Nutka, I apologize for my um, translation if I'm pronouncing it wrong, um, are a group of peoples that lived up in the waters of the Northwest, had a party to honor a girl's monarchy, and then she was taken far out to sea and left to swim back to the land. And once she had done that ordeal, she was recognized by her community as a woman, strong and brave and ready for the responsibilities of womanhood. And so it's really important. Jumping Moon is saying, I did not. My auntie did and continues to teach me our ways. Yay. She had just had her pollen ceremony on her 70th, where elders around the world came to put the pollen on her head. So beautiful. Do you know the significance of what the pollen represents? I have guesses, but would love to hear from you if you know. Um, yeah, and so we are corn people. Yeah. So not all of us come from intact cultures, right? And many of us here, I'm guessing, don't come from intact cultures. And, we don't have a map. And in my training, we look, the whole entire first module is looking at our own ancestry and the ancestral practices to understanding what happened to our people, leaving us culturally orphaned. Because we don't want to just take from another culture. That's not helpful here. And, because we're lacking the maps, or many of us are, the question begets itself is how do we do these rites well with meaning in modern times, right? What are the needs of our girls today without, again, stealing from any other culture? And honestly, this might sound really weird, but I believe it's actually really helpful to look at our genitals in comparison, like the female genitals in comparison to men's. And for this first initiation that offers a ceremony that reflects the genitals in nature. And so a vulva is inherently receptive, right? It's inwards, soft, and welcoming. And I think that these are the qualities that we need to welcome girls into their blood mysteries, where the masculine is like penetrating and like vision questing. And that's like, it's very, very masculine, penetrating and like challenge oriented. And what I see with the girls that I work with is yes, they need risk and challenge. And there's a lot that we go into in my training around that. But for this first one, for like learning to soften into our cyclical nature of our moon time, I think we need these more receptive, um, mark my vulva oriented or vulva inspired initiation. So, this is a First Nations saying that I don't know the source of, but at monarchy, a girl meets her power, and through menstruation, she practices her power. At menopause, she becomes her power. And so, going back to that wheel of initiation, which I saw somebody wanted, I will actually email you all. I don't have that like in a PDF to send to give to you right now, but I will share it with you through email is, how many of us actually experienced really finding meeting our power at this time. And I think that ultimately it's up to us as the women who are practicing our power, who are practicing uh, our cyclical ways, or if you're menopausal or in your gone through your wisdom rites and are a grandmother, like the becoming of your power. And so we have to model these different life phases for our girls. And so, in a culture that still has shame around menstruation, how do we move towards honoring our biological rite of passage, right, as women? Because not everyone actually wants this. And I'm guessing because you're here, you wish that you had had this. Um, but how do we create a culture out of so little, right? And how do we create excitement for something that's still taboo and strange and weird? And where I believe we start is turning towards the old ways as inspiration, right? We're not just copying them, as we're actually in modern times. Like, I don't know how helpful it is, even if you were to find what, your, let's say, Scandinavian ancestors did as like monarchy practices. We look towards the old ways, and then we look at the three stages of a rite of passage and the culture that we want to belong to. And the marriage of those ideally feeds the way. And so I want to explain the three stages of a rite of passage for you. So the first stage is the severance. It's the leaving of the familiar, the leaving of the everyday world. And if you don't do that, then nothing is different, right? And so there has to be this shedding of just everyday life to be able to move into the second stage, which is the liminal stage. This is the threshold. It's the time of the ordeal, of challenge and undoing. And this is like the traditional three stages of a rite of passage that the man I mentioned, Janep, coined the term by looking at intact indigenous cultures throughout the world. And so this is like you can think of the butterf or the caterpillar in the cocoon becoming the imaginal cells. It's like this is actually the death point. And I'll speak specifically of like what this might look like for a girl crossing childhood into adolescence. And then the last stage is integration. This is incorporation, the integrating of the lessons and that transformational experience, that marking of one way of being into another. And so you might just look at this and think of your own life and, what thresholds you've been through, or are you at a certain threshold in your life right now, where you can incorporate these three stages and really honor the marking and change um, that you may be going through or have gone through. So, how do we make monarchy a rite of passage? And the following slides are like really, they're questions to ask yourself connected to these three stages so that you can think of a framework as you approach either like honoring your own monarchy retrospectively, something that I'm actually going to go do and be held in a ceremony because I didn't have anyone to hold this. And I think that we can do these initiations retrospectively or bringing it forward to the girls in your own life. And so the first stage is for a moon ceremony, is what I like to call it, severance, right? We just covered these three stages. So the questions to really ask yourself if you're considering, ceremonially marking the monarchy, is how does the girl leave the everyday world? How also can the father or the masculine, if there is a father in their life, be a part of the send-off? Right? I've had dads lead their daughter up to the doorway of like red tent that we've created, or I've had them be there on the receiving end of her with like flowers to greet her and like usher her out into the world. And how can you make a space so sacred that simply entering it is the severance from the mundane world? Because I've done this, by creating sanctuaries akin to the red tent. I've done it in living rooms and I've done it on mountaintops for girls. Like because there isn't a specific map or we don't necessarily have red tents in our neighborhood, like I wish we did, is how do we create such a sacred space that is just imbued with so much beauty that it feels like you're entering into the liminal, which is the phase of leaving childhood behind. So these are some ideas, and if you really are interested, I suggest like jotting them down. Is this is the marking of a child leaving childhood. And how do we actually do that, right? How is the girl engaged in it? And so, one thing I like to do is ritually burn or bury, or maybe send down a river, a letting go of a childhood item. Maybe it's a giving away to another child in their life. But how do they, and you know, this is always an interesting one because it's like, well, I don't want to give away my most special one. And really, that is the death piece here of like, we're actually acknowledging the death of our childhood, which is grief-stricken. That is sad. And honestly, we're not really modeling how inspiring it is to be adults. Most girls are like, I don't really want to grow up because it doesn't look that fun. And, the more meaningful the item, the more powerful. It's just the truth of it. In Circle, I love having them share the highlights of their childhood. Like, what have been the best memories? What have been your favorite things you did as a child? And that is like a really beautiful way of honoring the child before we step into maidenhood. And then naming. What are those qualities that the girl will carry with her from childhood? Maybe it's playfulness or creativity, but we don't want to actually lose these qualities, even though we're not going to be a little girl. I love having girls make dolls to bring over this threshold with them because it's like that doll can hold all of these qualities with you and remind you. And then a threshold crossing. And this is what this image is. I just need to turn off my fan. It's burning my candle down rapidly. Um, so a threshold crossing is really a symbolic threshold. I mean, it's real, but it symbolizes the stepping from one way of being into the next. And so I love to do that as the girl is like naming what she's leaving behind. What qualities of her childhood does she want to leave behind? And what does she want to step into? So on one side, she names what she's leaving behind. She steps over a threshold and claims what she is carrying with her. And it can be really powerful and beautiful if done very intentionally. And then after like we've done some sort of threshold or letting go of the childhood, this is the time for the blessings of the community. This is the time for wisdom teachings from women. And this is where ideally the generations are all multi generations are present and where we can really pass on all this stuff that we've had to learn ourselves, probably on our own. I see like endless like womb healing like programs online for women, and I'm like, oh my God, we wouldn't need that if we just did this. If we passed on this stuff, right? So then we move to the integration phase, which is by far the most forgotten, overlooked part of a rite of passage. It is where we, pardon my like bluntness, but we just suck at it. We like the fireworks, we like the ceremony. It's like, oh, so beautiful, but we don't love the like ongoing tending, the support. And so after the girls have an experience, this picture is like after um, basically gave a group of girls these teachings over 3 days last summer. We came back and the families were all there to welcome them. And so I love to like have a community celebration after. And I also believe that girls group check-ins, like ongoing, just like regular check-ins and support, make all the difference. So mom check-ins, auntie check-ins, like how many, if you're a mom, like how many women can you surround your daughter with that can give her different perspectives, different experiences, but like rooted like wisdom. And then, mirroring back who you see. And really, like, this is also really hard to do, just straight up in our culture, because is your daughter different? Is the child different? If we're marking that she is, how are we showing that? How are we really like giving her different responsibilities, actually? I always wish that people waited to pierce, and no judgment if you did this, but like piercing of the ears, until they've started bleeding or like something that marks a change. Um, I've said this a few times that like probably the best rite of passage example that we can see that I don't believe is like the healthiest one, but is the military, because they actually are seen as different on the other side. They have badges, they have like a uniform, they have a certain haircut, they've been through ordeals, they've been through serious trainings, right? And so, how are we like doing that for girls? Like, what status do they have now? Is there something that could be different in their life that actually feels meaningful to them? So, and then the last one, I believe, or there's of course journaling, like encouraging them to moon journal. Moon, like weekly journaling with the different moon cycle can be a really great way to like just start, or like just new moon and full moon. How are you feeling? Where are you in your cycle? But cycle tracking. And that really needs support because the girls that I work with, like I'll see them like continuously needing like a new round of support of questions that they have. Um, so yeah. And then this one just feels so important because the truth is girls are not seeing other girls having these ceremonies. And so there isn't normalcy around it. And again, we're battling the dominant culture, which teaches girls to hate and shame their body. All those messages that you gave in the chat, those are still happening for girls. And so, how are we shifting that so that girls actually even want to have a ceremony? And I believe we talk regularly about this passage in moon ceremonies. We just normalize it. Just talk about it whenever you can. Just make it a normal conversation, not like, oh, a special ceremonial conversation we're going to have. It's like, no, let's just, yeah, when you get your cycle and have your ceremony, like, I wonder what you'll want to do. Do you want to have everyone wear red? Like, so find language that works for who you are working with too, which is um, maybe the girl that you're working with maybe it needs to be called celebration instead of ceremony. But I do want to state here that what I'm seeing is the cultural shift of like those of us who have daughters who really want something different. We're celebrating, but we're not actually initiating. And so there's been a shift from nothing, which many of you said there was nothing, or you hid it from your mother, to, oh my God, we're going to celebrate it. But actually, where is the wisdom coming in? Where is the honoring of that threshold, right? Lexi, yeah, yeah, we're celebrating, but we're actually not initiating totally. So, another idea is to tell stories that describe the beauty and joy and connection, which, like going back to the Red Tent. And if you haven't read the Red Tent, definitely get yourself a copy at a used bookstore. It's so epic, totally changed my life and so many women's lives. There's beautiful imaginations of just how powerful and holy that time was. It was literally what none of I shouldn't say what none of us do. It would be amazing if we were all doing that, but I don't know anyone that's really taking like 3 days of pause because we're like in the hustle of the culture that is moving at a testosterone hormonal pace. And so really like starting to tell stories of like, even if it's just from your longing, right? But give them imaginations and then one-on-one conversations. So here's just like a very basic checklist for any kind of like ceremonial holding for this passage is beauty. Like literally, if you don't do any of this and you just have them surrounded by beauty, it's like as the severance, like, yeah, this is a beautiful thing actually. And you just give them blessings and support, then okay. But here are some other ways too to like engage the hands. And in my training, I give you lots and lots of crafts to learn. And, like I've done, like everyone bring a bead. Some of you have probably done this for a blessing way. Everyone brings a bead that they put a blessing into, and we string a necklace for the girl that she can wear during her moon time. What are like hands and heart ways to connect and stories? And ideally, we're not sharing like the awful stories. I've had some ceremonies where it's like, oh, wow, the women here are actually still coming from hatred of their cycle. And I think it's okay to mention how hard it was, how alone, how awful it felt. But like, what is the arc of the story of like really creating a new story that can sure be from that place of poverty, but like actually connecting us to the power, to the beauty, to the sacredness of our cycle. And then having wise women there across the generations. I've actually started making it mandatory in my moon ceremonies for girls that you have to have an elder there. Like, we need to hear from across the generations, the women who have been through that whole entire wheel of the life cycles that aren't dead yet. So, because I realized the whole wheel actually includes death as a threshold. Um, a threshold, some kind of threshold experience, and I gave you those ideas of like the letting go, stepping over a threshold, and then you really do need a yes from the girl. And I knew a girl who was in my girls' groups. She actually started her moon cycle the day she joined girls' group, which felt really cool. And her mom was like, "You are having a ceremony." And she was like, "Oh, no, I'm not." And she really wanted her nose pierced. And her mom said, "Well, if you have a ceremony, you can get your nose pierced." So, and she ended up loving her ceremony. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that as like, that, the girl wouldn't have had it, honestly, if her mom hadn't really like stood strong and pushed that. It was during COVID, and I actually tried to find a piercer to come and pierce her nose in the ceremony, which I thought would be a really cool marking, but it was COVID. Um, and then the other like basic thing is just blessings. And even if you can't actually gather with a bunch of women, um, get blessings from the women in her life, the aunties and the grandmothers and the community members that don't live here, and have them written down and read them to her. Have her lay down and be like, massage her body and like blindfold her while you read these blessings. There's so many ways to do this. Um, that, ultimately is like your personal gifts and your intuition and your ceremonial and ritual experiences that you've had are going to be what actually guide you the most. And I just want to remind you all to really trust in mystery because mystery is a part of initiation. And that is actually the sign of an initiated human, is one that is deeply rooted in mystery because we're just not in control. We're really not. And to teach girls this from a young age is so potent and beautiful. So I just wanted to put this picture here because my question to you is, if not you, who will guide the girls through this threshold? And I really do mean that. It's not to put pressure on you. It's like just like reality is like who in your community could do this? Is there anyone or is there no one? And I put this picture because now that we've gone through like the teachings of a rite of passage and like a moon ceremony, is like this was actually my very first moon ceremony. And it was on top of a mountain and it was really beautiful in some ways. And I left it being like, I am not the one to do this. I just felt like an imposter. I was like, I've never done this. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to attune to the girl and listen and like create something without stealing from any other culture. But I don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm never going to do this again. And I'm sharing that story because, I think so many of us feel hesitant because it's like, well, we didn't have this, so we actually don't know. And, if you have these traditions in like your lineage, like, oh my gosh, I'm jealous, right? It's like I don't know when they got lost really, and I know why, but it's like I still want a map. I still really like want it, but it's actually caused me to really listen deeply and to use my creativity and life force to really work with the girl and work with the family and offer something that's never been offered before. And so, if you feel, um, Shiva, I see you said, what if you haven't got any wise women around you? What if you're completely alone? Yeah. What if you've never ever been able to build your like-minded community and connect? Yeah, I totally hear the grief in that. And I would just say, you know, there like there always are women, and sometimes we can get in our own way to finding them. And, I think that do you have any sisters or a mother or a grandmother or teachers that could support you in these blessings or really like help you find your way? Yeah. Yeah. And Megan says, Shiva, we're here for community. It can start anywhere. Yeah, and I really believe that. I've moved so many times in my life. My whole 20s, I spent traveling the world and living in really rural places where I didn't know anyone or speak the language. And it takes time. But I think that if we can really open ourselves and trust in mystery then we can find our people and start going to things. Like I'm sure, maybe there's like a women's group, or maybe there's, a full moon gathering or a Wheel of the Year event that you could go to. And places that, I think we're all here and sharing similar values because of the specificity of this offering. But yeah, start to find those threads. So yeah, I just want to like if you feel called to supporting girls, I want to share with what feels like the synthesis of my work. And if you aren't interested, like yeah, bow to you for your time and energy. But I'm just gonna share a little bit about like how to deepen in this work through my training, which I call Pathways to Womanhood. And this is like a year-long initiation into becoming a threshold guide and a girls group facilitator in your community. And really, it's this deep dive into learning the art of guiding girls in these ways that we just covered, right? With soul, with ritual, with nature and ceremony and ancestral crafts. And, we do this by mirroring the experience of a girls group. And so, like, we have our own girls group of purpose-driven, heart-centered women that really share values, like I was just speaking to, and, you know, who are ready to offer what they never had to the next generation and to like create extra money alternatively. And this is my methodology of how I like guide women through this initiation. And it starts with ancestral remembrance. And so it's really like we wake up our hands and heart and begin living in closer. Yeah, Caitlin just said like spiritual Girl Scouts, and I've said that so many times. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. Um, and wise women, yeah, wisdom Girl Scouts. By Shiva. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, so we start to build closer relationship with what some of you are probably maybe already practicing, but the wheel of the year, moon cycle living, cycling with our bodies, storytelling, ritual, ancestral honoring, all these things, so that we can really model to the girls that like we know where we come from, right? We actually do all come from a lineage that had intact culture. And so we take time to really understand and learn that. And then the second phase is ceremonial rites of passage for our daughters and girls. And you learn and connect with really this ancestral birthright for ritual and ceremony. And we go through like way more detail than what we just went through this past hour of really diving into human and soul development and understanding like what's going on with our girls, where are they struggling, and what are the tools that we can use to really support them and initiate them. And then casting the circle is really learning about holding circles specific to this age. And so we learn from facilitators and guest teachers this art of like, it is not the same as leading a women's circle. I will just say that. And you do need a little bit of fire to really hold the container like well. And then four is like this matriarchal leadership of like practicing our facilitation and really like claiming what are our unique gifts. And as the women in the training like start to practice facilitation, they all start offer things so differently. And that's what we want. And we can all learn from each other in that way because we don't need to be like anybody else. You don't need to do it just like me. Um, Ideally, you'll do it just like you. And yeah, then the last one is monetizing your service, right? It's like this is an offering where reciprocity comes in. And this is village work, but like we don't live in village times, right? And so we actually do have to charge for reciprocity. And I really assure you that this work is sought after and people are really waking up to how much we need it. I mean, you're all here like learning about this because we know that it's such a missing piece. And so these are the modules that we go through, ancestral maps to remembrance, ceremonial rites of passage for our girls, the practical art of casting your circle, manifesting your vision, which, I'll just say that not everyone in the training like chooses to start a girls group. Um, a bunch of people are doing this just for themselves, but this is built into the training of like really starting to build a business, creating your assets. There's like time frames for things so that you have accountability and like a little bit of a pressure cooker to make it happen because it seems based on everyone I've worked with is that like that kind of structure is hard to create on their own. And then the Journey Through the Elements, which is my earth-based curriculum that you get through the training. And we go through it as if we are in girls group, right? Um, sorry. And then over the summer are just monthly accountability check-ins. And then launching your girls group in module 4 is also a thing. And then your girls group begins. And so this is a woman who's been through the training, and she says, "This is more than I could ever say. Johanna's curriculum is gold. Every detail has been laid out with intention and purpose and has been backed by years of experience. I deeply enjoyed this training and the sacred container she created for us. It allowed for real exchanges, connections, and healing because to truly do this work, we must first heal ourselves. And Johanna offers us that and so much more." And so I'm just going to go kind of quickly through this. Like, this is some of what you get. I couldn't even fit it all in, honestly. You get lifetime access to all the teachings, you get certified, you get the curriculum, you get ceremony and ritual guides, coaching, guest teachers, you get a girls group toolkit, which has like everything that you need. And my goal is just that you have everything you need so that all you have to do is like really like get girls, find the girls, and practice your facilitation skills. Um, there's a song treasure trove, like all the songs that I use for rites of passage, for my circles, and the ceremonies and rituals. You get a craft box, ancestral craft box delivered to your door. And throughout the year together, we draw on that and I teach you the different crafts so that you have an embodied experience and an actual example by the time we're end to show to the girls. And then you get like template kits, emails, spreadsheets, all the things that you need to just like make it easy. And we do counsel once a month. So you basically have a built-in women's group. And there's a bunch of really cool women already in this program. And then we have an online connection space. The Facebook group is for women that have been through the training and you'd be added to. And then there's a private WhatsApp group where you can ask questions, share resources, and on. And it really is a personal transformation. I didn't even know that so much when I started this training. But Jen says, what I did not expect was how much I personally changed through this training. The depths we were guided to and supported and were powerful and healing. And when I signed up for this course, I expected to learn how to lead girls groups. Little did I know the depth of my own personal journey that I would go on. And then we have amazing guest teachers. These are just some of them. We do the art of storytelling with Siobhan. We do body anxiety in Girls Today with Dr. Catherine Holt, who's written an amazing book on this. And then we do like pleasure forward sex ed. I actually have this woman, Alyssa Marin, come to my girls' groups and teach. That's her teaching with that giant stuffed vulva. And so you'll literally get her sex ed education that you never had, and then what you can share with the girls. And then more guest teachers. Yeah, Lexi, of course, you're like, yeah, sex ed. We have lunar living, like how to align your life with the moon cycles in a deeper way. We have ancestral connection and social justice with Megan Chandler, who is just a brilliant embodied educator and deeply seated ancestral guide in the Celtic and Norse traditions. And then my teacher, Melissa Michaels, comes in, who also led girls groups and has an amazing body of work. I saw Taliza was here in the summer. Some of us have been trained by her. Um, yeah, and she's incredible. And there's many more guest teachers. I just didn't want to overload you. And then like why I created Girls Group was all of these missing pieces in our culture and education system. Like when I became a Waldorf teacher, I was like, oh, there's actually missing pieces even there in these alternative forms. So like nature connection, ceremony, ritual, embodiment, like you can read the list, but like these are all things that aren't being taught. Maybe through like your family or the girl's family and their lifestyle. But like these are things that I believe are going to create a healthier world and a more beautiful culture for us to really all live in. And so, this is just my plea of like why we really need this work. And I think I've spoken to it when we were talking about the rites of passage and all of us, really seeing what's missing is that like we're actually in like I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but this is a global pandemic and our youth are seriously struggling. And the current state of adolescence is like there's serious mental health challenges. Girls are facing unprecedented and alarming rates of mental health struggles, and they're only growing. Body dysmorphia, right? Which is just in case you're not familiar with the term, it's a mental health condition where a person becomes obsessively preoccupied with what they perceive as a flaw in their body that like nobody else notices. Yeah, Megan says that she's here because of mental health is a huge reason, totally. And the biggest challenge that I probably see is anxiety. Like this is a group of girls that I worked with for 8 years, and every single one here, you probably wouldn't assume looking at them and their happy smiles, but they all suffered from anxiety and are still grappling with it. It is a crazy world to be growing up in, and we really have to circle around our youth. It's like preventative and supportive rather than like, down the road having like a bunch of shit to work through. They also struggled with depression. Um, Teens are struggling with addiction, even suicide, and deep disconnection to nature, right? It's like the phones. If you haven't read The Anxious Generation, highly suggest it. It really provides all the data around what's actually going on with these phones and the anxiety and depression that it's causing. And the youth are really pushing because it's for connection, so they can be connected to their friends. Um, but it's not real connection because what teens really need, the developmental need, is belonging, like real belonging and like an authentic identity and expression. And so Girls Group really is a space where you can have all of that. Um, and there's like really, really toxic girl culture out there, you know? So really, Girls Group is my attempt to balance all of this out and provide something different for the girls. And, one of these girls here like really struggled from an eating disorder that her parents would not have found out if I hadn't said something. And so you get to be that, like that, what I call village auntie, like through supporting girls. And so here are like the training details. We start the fall around the fall equinox. It's like right before the actual equinox, and we meet for 12 months. It's a very small and intimate circle of 13 women. I think we have 6 more spots left in the training. Um, there are 5 online modules that we go through live. And these are on like weekly Wednesday Zoom calls, and they're at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So I don't know the time zones all of you are in, but there's lots of bonus calls with expert guest teachers. There's a once a month women's council, integration calls, and small pod. You get put into little groups of the women in the training, and you just get to meet and support each other. And, that really helps with integration and just creativity and sisterhood and accountability. And then you and I work one-on-one to get like really clear on what your vision is for your girls group. So it's a custom designed to your life. I have a map and I've done it many different ways, and you will get the curriculum, but really it has to work for your life, right? And so mine are weekly, you might do them monthly. And so we get to like creatively really vision and plan a girls group that works for you. The private spaces that I mentioned before. And then there's also an online course portal that has all these things, teaching videos, crafts lessons, inspirations, Wheel of the Year rituals, nature connection practices, and songs, and journal prompts for your own deepening. And so this is the investment for the training that will set you up with a business for you to actually make it back. The investment is for the 12 months, 9,000. And so you can do it monthly, painful and save. But I did want to say, just because you're all here and present and like sharing of your time and energy, I just wanted to offer $1,000 off the training. And that's for if you apply in the next 3 days. The spots will go because there's only, I think, 6 left, and the doors are only opening today. And so, yeah, if you apply, which you have till Saturday, if you just get your application in and book a call, then, I'll honor the discount. We don't need to have our call in the next 3 days. But yeah, this is just my gratitude to you for really being here and being present. And so Summer, who's actually here, says, I love trainings. I would take all the trainings in the world, but this training is by far the best training I've ever been in. The depth of inspiration, wisdom makes it without a doubt worth the price point. And so I just wanted to actually hand it over to Summer. And if you want to say anything, just actually like live in real time.
Oh, thanks, Johanna. Thank you for that. Beautiful. I'm like, I did the training and I still, am here on the free calls because every time I hear something different. And yeah, I'm just happy to share really briefly about the training. I think one of the main things that was really powerful for me is how set up for success I felt at the end of it. I hold a lot of women's circles in my community, but working with middle school aged girls was a big edge for me. And I already have like 2 full groups that will be successful in the fall. And so part of that is really just the value of this training where like Johanna was saying, all of the songs, the games, it's unbelievable, the body of work um, that goes into it. And so I just feel like the value of the work itself and then also what it's modeling. And so really just want to reiterate what Johanna was saying. I've worked for a few rites of passage organizations, and it's this kind of time out of time space. It's beautiful. We create this spot, but what I've always longed for myself and for the people around me is the integration and the continuation of care. And that's what these girls groups are, is it's a year long continue, these girls already, I'll know the rest of their lives. And I feel like that is a huge missing piece for cultural remembrance and culture like recreation is that, you know, length. So yeah, it's just incredible. I can't recommend it more.
Thanks, Summer. Yeah, and what Summer was just speaking to again is like that third phase of a rite of passage, which is the hardest one. And so integration, incorporation. So how do we ongoingly support our girls? Because I know it's really attractive to just do the moon ceremony, to like, the fireworks of like are really alluring, like the big, beautiful, special things that we didn't have, but it's actually in the tending, the ongoing tending where the girls really, really need support. And both are important. Like, going back to that wheel of initiation, it's like if we don't have one, can we actually have the next one? The creation, going from the blood rights into creation rights into wisdom rights. And I think that we can, but we have to retrospectively also do that work. And I'll just share that, like, I've seen so many groups, like boys groups, girls groups, non-binary groups, like start up and fail because I don't think the leaders are always set up with a really spot on, like, kid-approved curriculum that really, like, help the kids um, access all of this wisdom because it's not the same, like I said before, leading a women's group and like we over spiritualize things with kids all the time in like this realm of work. And so I feel like I really do have the curriculum and tools and offerings for you guys to do it well in a way that really works for the kids. And I just want to end with this amazing quote from Michael Meade, who is a brilliant, also a rites of passage guide, elder, wisdom keeper, um, who says, if the fires that innately burn inside the youth are not intentionally and lovingly added to the hearth of community, they will burn down the structures of culture just to feel the warmth. And so that is really true. Like just a show of hands here of like who self-initiated, through drugs, through sex, through traveling, through anything. Yeah, it's like most of us. So I really want to just thank you all again for being here and would love to just open up for any questions that you have before we close out in a good way of a song if y'all are interested in learning a song that I do with the girls. But yeah, we'll just take like a few minutes here if anybody has a question related to the rites of passage work, to the training. Any direction is really welcome. Yeah, Lexi, I see your hand.
Yeah, I know I sent you a love note voice note, but like I just kept getting chills and tears throughout this entire call. And I have taken dozens and dozens of certification trainings, programs, etc. And I can just feel the depth, the love, the intentionality, the magic that's poured into this. Like it's so evident. I can only imagine what it's like to be immersed inside of the experience, and I can't wait to be a part of it. So, thank you for what you do. My question is, in terms of like getting access to the materials in the program, I'm like jumping at, I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I want to access all of it right now. And I know it's like in due time. So if we were to enroll now and pay in full and all that, like, how does the modules get access? Is it they get dripped out or yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm currently in this like process of maybe changing my platform of the actual like online course portal. This when I started this training, I was like, oh, they'll just be like a video or two each module, and it's actually a lot more. And so yeah, I'm in this like transition phase of like maybe needing to switch over to Kajabi. But you do get some pre-work starting in August, like like a month before the training starts, so like mid-August. I do you do get the course, like the pre-work course, which is like around like singing and ritual and nature connection, some of these like very basic like key pieces that I think just as like human beings we all need. And then like each module you get access to the module. So, like as we go into the module, yeah, you get access to the teachings and the inspirations and musings. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you.
Yay. Anybody else have a question? Yeah, Megan.
Yeah. Um, so this really touched me deeply, as I know it's touching everybody. Very much on a personal note with a 13-year-old who I'm so grateful to tap into this today because any day, any minute now, my daughter will have her first moon time, and I have such big emotions around it, with regard to all the resistance that she has developed over the past year and a half. And I know I have so much to learn still as a parent, and how much of my world I share with her that causes her to turn the other way. I'm curious how, I feel like you've got to be, well versed in this as well and preparing for it, but how much time, or not how much time, but just um, I'm wondering for the non-binary youth and the youth experiencing a lot of confusion and exploration of expression. That's a really big area of importance to me because my daughter is traveling that path right now, and I see so many youth around her also in this big, we all know that time is so challenging, and it's a time where we are exploring our identity. And I guess that's a really big reason why this is so important to me. Why working with youth in this realm, why I've wanted to transition from women to young women, because I think a lot of them are just lost in not having had this connection. So I just wonder if you can speak to that at all, and if you have much experience in working with your girls, and if that comes into play through the training.
Yeah, for sure. It's a part of the training. The way we've done it is like through a gender panel of folks who are on different places on the spectrum, non-binary, trans, mothers of trans youth and their voices, and like how to really support them in this questioning or this knowing. For me, the like reason why I call it girls group is because I'm wanting to pass on female bodied wisdom. And so it's ultimately up to you. What is your realm of comfort? And my realm of comfort is like supporting youth in their exploration, in their authentic expression. And ultimately, this work is for female-bodied girls in my circles. And there were folks in the training that have like, their circles are for gender expansive youth. And so again, it just comes down to what's your realm of comfort and like how do we just be a loving, endlessly loving, supportive person in their life as they are in this deep inquiry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I imagine you really are. Just looking at you, feeling into you.
Doing my
Yeah. It's an
best.
ongoing question that I don't have really, like a straightforward answer to you
Oh,
for
I
you.
can imagine.
Big one. Yeah.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Joanna.
Yeah. Yeah. Any last questions before
I
we
have a question. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand.
That worked.
Um, yes, I can't see how many people, so I didn't want to interrupt. I was wondering about the business tools. I am so low tech, and this is one of the very interesting features for me. But I would love to not have it arrive at the end. Is there any way that we can have that available, like throughout the program to explore with and kind of? I have a lot of takes me a long time to adapt systems
Mhm.
and be able to be comfortable working in them. And I'd be doing this part time. So I would be really interested if that was
Mm.
something that I had more time with.
Yeah, yeah. There is like about from January to May. Does that feel like
Okay.
enough time?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, we could
I'm
totally
really
talk
vamping
about
out
that.
with so I also have teenagers and our technology is out of control. So I'm about to actually get a consultant to help us
Yeah.
bring it all in. But as I'm learning those things, it would have been really a better use of my time to learn all of the integration of the tech that I'm sort of taking on.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate it's probably by design, but I just was wondering if there was a way to have a little bit more exposure so that I can get the coaching I need. while
Yeah,
I
I think
already have
that's
the
in the
resources
realm of
in place.
possible. This is why I keep it intimate. Like I'm not, interested in
Yeah.
like 100 people in the container because I really want to meet you as an individual with unique needs and, unique gifts. And yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, we can work with that.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. This is awesome.
Yeah, great. So glad you were here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, maybe one more question. Anybody got it? And then we'll sing a song. No. Right. No. I'm gonna actually give you guys the lyrics. Um, I don't usually teach like this, but I think for unity's sake, we'll do this. Okay, is everyone on mute? It looks like it. Unfortunately, on Zoom, you just have to listen to my voice. I really tried to actually, let's just all unmute and do this, and it's totally weird. So yeah, part of, working with the girls in like these earth-based ancestral ways is bringing back these like key pieces to our like the making of our humanness, which are storytelling and ritual and craft and singing and nature connection. And so, like, we close every single girls group with the same song, which I'll teach you if you're in the training. But this one felt like just came into my consciousness this morning and wanted to offer it to you. So I'll sing and then you sing. I'll put the lyrics in. So it goes like this. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Weave your web of dark and light. Weave your web of dark and light. Earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, air, fire, and water bind us as one. Bind us as one. We'll do one more like that. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Weave your web of dark and light. Weave your web of dark and light. Earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, air, fire, and water. Bind us as one. Bind us as one. We'll just do it a couple times through all together. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Weave your web of dark and light. Earth, air, fire, and water bind us as one. Last time. Sisters, spin your circle bright. Weave your web of dark and light. Earth, air, fire, and water bind us as one. Bind us as one. All right, you all. Thank you so much. Talisa, love to you and all of you. Thank you for staying, for showing up live. It always cracks me up. There's like 600 plus women signed up, and there's like this little group. But I totally trust in that, and that this is like, yeah, I'm always curious, like, who do I have a destiny date with here? So, yeah. Yeah, you're so welcome, Jackie. And yeah, just blessings on your journey and reach out. Summer put in, if you're interested in like the application, maybe Summer, you can just put that in again. Um, yeah, you can check out more details on the website or just reach out. And yeah, if you have any questions or around any of this, really, not just the training. But yeah, wishing you all a beautiful rest of your summer and yeah, look forward to seeing if our lives are meant to weave together. All right. Right. Oh, we have to blow out our candle. Sorry. Okay. So if you brought your candle, yeah, just want to bring us back into the field of prayer and blessings for the youth in our lives, the youth all around us, who really are needing like that village around them and needing deeper connection to mystery, to soul, to spirit. And yeah, may we all find our unique way to serving the youth for all life to thrive. Here we go. All right. Blessings. So good to see your beautiful faces. Okay. Bye-bye. Take care.